All right, so today we're diving into some really cool research. At least I think it's cool.
Yeah.
It's about using deep brain stimulation to treat Parkinson's disease.
Really interesting stuff.
And we're going to be unpacking today.
That's cutting edge, really. And
Mhm.
for me, the most exciting part is how they're trying to make deep brain stimulation better.
Mhm.
More effective, less invasive, all that good stuff.
Right, because I think for a lot of people, when they hear brain surgery, it's like,
Whoa, hold on.
yeah, exactly.
What's a big deal?
So maybe we should back up a bit for folks who maybe they're not neuroscientists like myself.
Sure.
What exactly is going on in the brain when someone has Parkinson's?
So Parkinson's, it mainly affects this one part of the brain, the basal ganglia, which basically it's like the control center for movement, right?
Makes sense.
And within the basal ganglia, you've got all these pathways, like circuits, that tell your muscles when to move, when to stop.
So everything's timed just right.
Exactly. It's all about smooth, coordinated movement.
Okay, and dopamine. I know that's a big part of this, but I've never totally understood how it's involved.
Right. So dopamine, think of it like a messenger between neurons, these brain cells.
Mm-hmm.
It's what lets those pathways in the basal ganglia, talk to each other.
So it's like what, the oil that keeps the gears moving smoothly?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And with Parkinson's, those gears start grinding to a halt because they're running low on oil.
Because the dopamine's not there.
Exactly. The cells that make dopamine, they start to die off. So you don't have enough dopamine. And those signals, they get all messed up.
And that's what causes the tremors and everything.
Exactly. All those classic Parkinson's symptoms, the tremors, the stiffness, the slow movements.
Wow, so basically, deep brain stimulation, it's like we're trying to find a workaround for those faulty communication lines.
Exactly. You're getting it.
That's wild.
And this thesis, it's looking at a whole new way to do deep brain stimulation with this new multi-electrode array. But
Okay.
before we get into that, maybe we should talk about how the traditional deep brain stimulation works, for context.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's do that. So deep brain stimulation, it's like sending in a little electrician to rewire those faulty circuits in the basal ganglia. Is that kind of the idea?
Well, not exactly rewiring, but I like where your head's at. It's more like we're trying to fine-tune the signals.
Okay, so how do these electrodes actually do that? It's not like they're shocking the brain, right?
No shocking involved. It's all about using very precise, very mild electrical pulses. And those pulses, they help to regulate the activity in those brain circuits that have become overactive because of the dopamine loss.
So it's more about restoring balance than like jump-starting a dead battery.
Exactly. We're not replacing the dopamine, but we're helping the brain work better despite not having enough of it.
That's amazing. So the stimulation helps to reduce the tremors, the rigidity, all of that.
Exactly. It can make a huge difference for people with Parkinson's. I mean, this thesis talks about how DBS can significantly improve quality of life for many patients. It can help them move more easily, even reduce their need for medication in some cases.
Wow, that's incredible. But you mentioned earlier that there are some limitations with current DBS technology. That's where this new research comes in, right? With this new multi-electrode array.
Precisely. This really dives into some of the challenges with the traditional DBS electrodes. Like, one thing they talk about is lead migration.
Lead migration, what is that?
So the electrodes, they're these tiny wires, right? And sometimes they can actually shift out of place. They can migrate.
Oh, wow. And I'm guessing that's not good if they're supposed to be stimulating a very specific area.
Exactly. And then there's the risk of lead fracture, where the electrode could actually break.
Inside your brain.
Yeah. It's rare, but it can happen. So this new multi-electrode array, it's designed to be much more stable, much more resistant to those kinds of problems.
So how does it do that? What makes it so different?
Well, they're using this really innovative tissue ingrowth concept. Basically, the way they've designed this array encourages the brain tissue to kind of grow around it, almost like it's becoming a part of the brain itself.
So it's like it's anchoring itself in place.
Exactly.
Wow, so it's not just sitting there, it's actually integrating with the brain.
Exactly. And that's just one of the cool things about this new array.
Okay, so more stable, that's huge, but what about those multiple electrodes? What difference does that make?
Right. So instead of just one point of contact, you've got multiple electrodes, which means you can be way more precise with the stimulation.
Oh, I see. So it's like using a scalpel instead of a butter knife.
Yeah, exactly. You can target very specific pathways within the basal ganglia.
And why is that so important?
Well, because with more precise targeting, you could potentially get the same therapeutic effect, but with less stimulation to the surrounding brain areas.
Which means fewer side effects.
Exactly. It's all about minimizing those unwanted side effects.
That makes a lot of sense. And on top of all that, this new array, it's also got some pretty impressive advancements in the on-chip circuitry, right?
Yeah, the thesis talks about that too. They've made some big strides in miniaturization and power efficiency.
And that matters because, well, we're talking about implanting this thing in the brain, right?
Absolutely. The smaller the device, the less invasive the surgery, and the improved power efficiency means these devices could potentially last much longer.
So fewer surgeries for battery replacements, that's huge.
It would make a big difference for patients.
It sounds like this new multi-electrode array has the potential to really revolutionize deep brain stimulation treatment for Parkinson's.
It's definitely a game changer, but it's important to remember this is still early stage research.
Right. There's still a lot of testing to be done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the early results are very promising.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive, I have to say.
It's fascinating stuff.
Really makes you appreciate the incredible things happening in the world of science and technology.
Absolutely. Gives you hope for the future.
It really does. And for our listeners who want to learn more about this groundbreaking research, we'll have a link. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.